There, guys. I was reading Job a while back. It's a book that's disturbed me for many years. I've gotten much from it as well, but I saw something the other day that I wanted to share with you. A lot of people use the book of Job to explain suffering, but I want to go through it. It's really, really long, but I just want to show you what I saw. First of all, what I realized is that anything that is good on this earth, how it says the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. Anything that's good, family, our health, the beauty of creation, uh, all these things that we take for granted, they're all of God. God, by His grace, gives that to every living person. He gives us the ability to think and to reason, even if it's against Him. But He gives all these good gifts to every living creature on the planet. And we don't stop and realize that it's all because of Him. There's several lessons in the book of Job, and they're hard. They're hard to hear. But I think when we have the right mentality, the humility of knowing God and all His glory and how amazing He is, that He would even, like David says, how art thou mindful of man? What is He that you're mindful of Him? I think David says that. But we're important to Him. God loves us. Um, but to me, what this story tells me is you want to know what life's like without God? All He has to do is step away. Step away. See, all the things that He gives us by grace every day we take for granted. All He has to do is step away. The enemy is waiting to devour all the good that we enjoy. Our family, a way to make a living, our precious memories, our health, everything. I remember when things got so bad many years ago and I had lost so much. I would look for things to praise God for because I was so devastated. My health was gone, my career was gone, I was in constant pain. But I would go outside and I would look at creation and I would praise Him for cold water because I realized I don't deserve anything good. I mean, where is it that we think we just deserve stuff? But what I thought of here is everybody wants to live without God. But without God, we wouldn't have any of these gifts. He gives them to us all freely. And another point that I saw here is people seem to think they speak on behalf of God. Like, well, God's doing that to you. You're sick. You lost someone. God's punishing you. He doesn't do that to righteous people. God sets them straight. We should never speak for God or attribute things that happen to other people as God doing them, as if He's done some judgment because they deserved it. And plus, this world, the way it is, we're in a fallen world. Things happen. Bad things happen to good people. It's just the way it is. But we also got to keep in mind, none of us are really good in the sight of God. That's why we need Christ to redeem us. But we have this chip on our shoulder, like we deserve this stuff. But all the good stuff comes from God. All He'd have to do is step away. That's it. And Job's horror, that would be everybody's life on this planet. Because without God's grace, we wouldn't have anything. And you see the enemy here waiting to destroy you. That if he had free reign, you would be in agony. But in this case, it's basically all God has to do is just step away. You'd have nothing good. We take for granted all the good we have. I think it's just a good example of keeping ourselves humble because we don't always understand everything. God knows the end from the beginning. God does a lot of things we don't understand. It says His ways are higher than our ways, His thoughts higher than our thoughts. But I really think this is to show us we don't deserve anything. Every good thing on the just and the unjust comes from God. And if He would just step out of the way, we'd lose all of it. We wouldn't have anything good without God. He gives it to us all, the lost included, even the people that hate Him. They benefit from God and His grace, what He does. what he provides for us. So I wanted to take a look at Job here. It says, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And it tells you about his livelihood. You know, he's a wealthy man, how many kids he has, etc. And it tells you a little bit about Job. But since it's perfect there, it means upright and just to God as a believer. Okay? Obviously, nobody's perfect. So perfect here means mature, and his heart is in good standing with God. He understands his place before God, right? And so it tells you about, if you read, it's really long, it's like 40 some chapters. It goes on to tell you about him, everything that he had. And he feared God so much, like had a respect and a reverence for God. And it said, when the days of their feasting were gone about, Job sent and sanctified them and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all, talking about his children. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continually. So he was always had a fear that his kids might do something to offend God, right? I I really think we come to the conclusion here that God loves us. I mean, if you can see it, he's not waiting to destroy you. Who's waiting to destroy you? The enemy. God takes no pleasure in that. And Job wasn't being punished for anything. And his friends were supposed to comfort him, but instead they keep saying, no, no, God doesn't do that to righteous people. He wouldn't do that. He's a just God. Like, we deserve it, you know? And so I think it's very dangerous to try to speak for God in these matters. But anyway, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and walking up and down in it. And the Lord said to Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, doth Job fear God for naught? Hey, he only fears you because you give him everything he wants, right? Hast thou not made a hedge about him and about his house and about all he has on every side? So that shows you right there, Satan's waiting to pounce on Job and his family. He wants to destroy him. Why? Because he's a good man that loves God. He hates him. He wants to get to him. But God has a hedge around him, a hedge of protection. And what I'm saying here is that this is about the whole world, the just and the unjust, the lost and the saved. God gives gifts to men all day, every day, and we take them for granted. We do. I think this is the main point, that a life without God would be all the good, all the mercy, the love, the family, the health, everything gone, because it's all by God's grace that the whole world enjoys these things. I really think that's the point of this. And he said, put forth thine hand now and touch all that he has, and he'll curse thee to thy face. So Satan's saying he'll curse you, God. He doesn't really love you. He loves what you do for him, right? And we know that's not true, because Job isn't, he doesn't love God or have a high view of God because of what he does for him. He understands his place as merely a man, and that God is high and lifted up and is perfect. So he just has the right mentality of humility before God. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. Now, God didn't do this to Job. And I understand, because I get upset too. I'm like, why did he let him do that? I think the point of the story is to let us see all God has to do is just back away. That's what life's like without God. It's his love and mercy that keeps these things from happening to us daily. It's his love, mercy, and grace that allows all of us, lost and saved, to have family and love and health and whatever else you have, a means for livelihood. We take it all for granted as if it's like owed to us. And I think that's the point of this, to show that all good things come from God. If it was up to the enemy, everybody be destroyed. He hates us very much. So it's not God doing this to Job at all. All he did was back up. That's it. That's it. But he still put limitations on the enemy. He said, you can't kill Job. You can't take his life. All right? So even so, he backed away. He still kept him from taking his life. So what we see here in the next couple chapters is all of his children die. He loses all of his livestock to thieves and I think wild animals or something. Anyway, all of it, that's all of his money. All his money's gone. All his property's gone. All of his children gone. Right? Then we see in the next chapter here, it says, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among him. So what he's done so far is he's killed his children and taken his livelihood, everything he owns, right? So let's go down to the end of that. And let's see. Yeah, so all this stuff's happening. Burned up the sheep. Yeah, everything's gone. So Job arose, rent his mantle, shaved his head, this is grief, and fell down upon the ground and worshiped. He worshiped God in this agony. That's another lesson we can, even when things are bad, God is still good. See, we have the tendency to want to judge God here. But we don't deserve all this good stuff. It's just given to us because he's God and he's good and we all benefit from it every day. We take it for granted. Again, all God has to do is back away. And this is what we'd all have. Nothing without him. Job arose, rent his mantle, shaved his head, fell upon the ground, and worshipped, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. So he didn't blame God. And he didn't even say, really, that God was doing this to him. But as sovereign, he does say, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. This is what Job's mind is saying. But we see later that God corrects some of the thinking these people have, right? You know, you need to read it for yourself, but I just wanted to show you what I'm seeing. And then in the next chapter, you see the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came among them to present himself. The Lord said to Satan, whence cometh thou? And of course, he was going to and fro on the earth, walking up and down in it. And the Lord said to Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? There's none like him. He's perfect and upright man. He fears God, escheweth evil. He still holds fast his integrity, although you moved me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. Put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. So all he's got left is his health, and Satan is now saying he wants access to that. Okay? So, once again, God backs off. And he says, behold, he's in your hand, but save his life. You can't kill him. Now, as human beings, this is a hard book. It's a hard book for me. But I think the point of it here is just to give us a peek into the spirit realm. One, to see how much the enemy despises us. Two, that we enjoy the goodness and grace of God, lost and saved, every day that we don't give him credit for. And a world without God would be a world in misery. It'd be a world without mercy, love, companionship, provision. That's what we would have without God. I think that's what it's showing us here. I also think we need to be real careful when we decide we're judging God and then attributing things to him that he didn't even do. He didn't have anything to do with. Acting like we have the wisdom to know God's mind. And that's what his friends did. And he called them miserable comforters are you all. Because they're basically saying you deserve it, Job. Because God doesn't punish righteous, just people. And I hear Christians saying this to people when they get cancer. I get so sick. I was like, have you not read the book of Job? How dare you tell that person who's suffering that God's doing it to them, or they sinned and did something wrong? You know, Jesus could say those things because why? Because he was God manifested in the flesh, and Israel was under the law. Go and sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. That's the bondage of the law. And he was God himself. He can say these things, but not us. Okay? And so this is what happened. Uh, he gave him permission to go ahead. And then what happened is he gets boils from the sole of his foot to his crown. Satan went forth and smote Job all over his body. And he took a potsherd to scrape himself against his itching and uncomfortable, and he sat down among the ashes. Now, meanwhile, he's still in grief. He's lost everything. And his wife said to him, "Do you still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die." So this foolish woman says to blame God, curse him out, and die. And he said to her, "Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God? And shall we not receive evil?" In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. So he's not blaming God. He's just saying, whatever happens, happens. It's in God's hands. I don't understand it all. I don't believe I've done anything wrong here. I don't think God's doing this to me. But for whatever reason he's letting this happen, I've got to trust him. Blessed be the name of the Lord, no matter what. Okay? And when they lifted their eyes far off, and they knew him not, and they lifted up their voice and wept. This is Eliphaz, Temanite, Bildad, Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. These are all his friends that come to mourn with him and comfort him. They didn't even recognize him from afar. And then they sat down and put ashes on their head. And they sat down 7 days and 7 nights and spoke not a word, because they saw his grief was very great. Now, they don't do nothing but talk for 40 chapters. Now, you see Job going into a depression. Then Job opened his mouth and cursed his day. I wish I'd never been born. This is terrible. Cursed is the day I was born, etc. We see this whole process. But I stopped just to give you some key points here. And then Eliphaz the Temanite said, this is basically them saying, hey, you must have done something wrong. If we essay to commune with thee, wilt thou be grieved? But who can withhold himself from speaking? Behold, thou hast instructed many, and thou hast strengthened the weak hands. Thy words have upholden him that was falling, and thou hast strengthened the feeble knees. But now it has come upon thee, and thou faintest. So he's been a pillar of the community. He's helped them all through hard times. But they're saying, but now you're giving up. You're suicidal because it's happened to you, and you are troubled. Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and thy uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent? Or where were the righteous cut off? Even as I've seen, they plow iniquity and sow wickedness, and they reap the same. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. And it goes on and on saying, hey, you can't be innocent, because it's only the wicked people that perish and go through this. You must have sinned. You must have done something wrong. And they are speaking wrongly. Okay? Wrongly. God is not doing this to him. Job has done nothing wrong. All right? I think the point here is that we need to understand that all good things come from God. When bad things do happen, it's not God doing it to us. We have to accept and trust in him, as just know that he knows the end from the beginning. All right. This is so that we don't wrongly give attributes to God that aren't, he's not doing this. You see, it seems like it here, but I think the whole point is so we understand everything good just comes from his grace. And he goes on, for wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. Her children are far from safety, and they're crushed in the gate. It's all about how if you were innocent, this wouldn't have happened to you. Okay? But Job answered and said, oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed and my calamity laid in the balance. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea, for therefore my words are swallowed up. He swears, I've done nothing wrong. He's swearing he's done nothing wrong here. And he keeps going on. I promise you, I have done nothing. I did not deserve this. And he says, is there not an appointed time to man upon the earth? Are not his days also like the days of a hireling? There's a limited amount of time. And when that time's up, it's done. It's already predetermined, I think, is what he's trying to say. And as a servant earnestly desires the shadow, and as a hireling looketh for the reward of his work, so am I made to possess months of vanity, and wearisome nights are appointed unto me. It's a lot of crying and depression, but it's still him defending himself, saying, I have not done anything. I promise you, I have not some secret sin. God's not doing this to me. I don't know why this is happening, but I have done nothing wrong. Then Bildad the Shuhite says, how long wilt thou speak these things? How long shall the words of thy mouth be like a strong wind? Does God pervert judgment? Or does the Almighty pervert justice? If thy children have sinned against him, and he has cast them away for their transgression. So he's saying, if you would seek unto God betimes and make thy supplication to the Almighty, if thou were pure and upright, surely now he would awake for thee and make the habitation of thy righteousness prosperous. See, he's saying it's no, you've done something wrong. Job keeps saying, I know it so of a truth, but how should a man be just with God? Bam! There is a big point there. Okay, so this guy's saying, see, we could be upright and perfect. You have to be perfect before God. All right, now God said he's upright, but why? Job's heart was right. He trusted God. He knew in his humility that God was high and lifted up and perfect, and he was just a man, and that all good things come from God, right? But these people are saying you can earn it. If you were being good enough, you'd earn these things from God. See, the righteous, they get wealth, they get health, their children are blessed. So you must have done something wrong, right? They're trying to tell him, hey, do this or do that, and it'll please God. Read chapter 8. This is what he's telling them. If you do these works, you'll be right with God because you did something wrong here. All right. Now, this is the right attitude. Job answered, I know it's so of a truth, but how should a man be just with God? Remember, the just shall live by faith. He's preaching all these works about how you got to do this and you could earn it. And if you were good enough, you'd have these blessings. That's not always so, is it? You remember, we build our treasures in heaven. God is want everybody that trusts Christ and serves the Lord isn't wealthy. Look at Paul. I mean, they gave up everything. They weren't wealthy. I mean, it's crazy the ideas we get about God. But he says, if he will contend with him, he cannot answer him one of 1,000. He is wise in his heart and mighty in strength, who has hardened himself against him and has prospered. You think you're going to be just before God? You can do anything to impress God to where you deserve these things? No, it's God's grace that gives us all these things. It's good to do the right thing. Sin is destructive to us. But that's not the issue here in this story. These people really think you can earn it, like God owes you something if you're righteous. No, God's grace provides it to the just and the unjust alike. Praise his name. All good things come from God. And he's like, how should a man be just? He shakes the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble, commands the sun, and it rises not. He sealeth up the stars, which alone spreadeth out the heavens, and treads upon the waves of the sea, which makes Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades, the chambers of the south. He's saying his ways are past finding out, and you think a man can be just before God? He says it's not possible. Like we don't deserve anything. And you see the next 20 some chapters, my soul is weary. And then his friends come back and go, no, you must have done something wrong. God, and they're speaking on God's behalf foolishly. God did this to you. You got a secret sin. You did something wrong. It goes on and on and on. And Job is continually saying the glory of God. Look at this amazing things he's done. How can man think he's anything to him? I'm going to go down to the end here. They keep going on. This in chapter 16, I love. They're supposed to be there to comfort him. Job says, I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are ye all. Shall vain words have an end? Or what emboldeth thee that thou answerest? I could also speak as you do. If your soul were in my soul's stead, I could heap up words against you and shake my head at you. He is devastated. He's lost his whole family. He's lost all of his money, everything, all of his children, and now his health is taken. He's in agony physically. And they're still coming over there and shaming him. He's like, if I were in your place, I could just heap up more pain for me. Miserable comforters are you all. You're supposed to come here to comfort me. He said, but I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the moving of my lips would assuage your grief. I would help you not be in so much pain, not tell you you deserve it. You must have done something to deserve it. But now he has made me weary. Thou hast made me desolate, all my company, and you filled me with wrinkles, which is a witness against me. And my leanness rising up in me beareth witness to my face. He teareth me in his wrath who hateth me. He gnasheth upon me with his teeth. My enemy sharpeneth his eyes upon me. They have gaped upon me with their mouths. They have smit me upon the cheek reproachfully. They have gathered themselves against me. And by the way, some of this is prophetic of Christ. The Lord took all that on. But I'm going to move forward to the end. This is a very long thing. I don't want to keep you here all night. I mean, we could go line by line. I might do that one day. So I'm going all the way to the end here. So what happens here? God basically tells them to shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. God speaks to Job and says, hey, you don't understand all things here. Hey, were you here when I created the earth? Can you get Leviathan out of the sea with a hook? No, you can't. I created him. Can you see Behemoth? This is a sauropod dinosaur with the long tail. I created him with you. He shakes the earth. I control him. I created all this. So you can't like even fathom my thinking or what's going on. And your friends shouldn't be speaking on my behalf. They speak foolishly. And he even tells Job, you spoke rightly. You have not sinned against me with your mouth. You spoke rightly, saying, basically, how can a man be just before God? We're nothing before him in his holiness and perfection and power. And that all good things come from God. Are we only going to worship God when things are good? No, we worship God when things are bad as well. So I think it's a really hard book. It is. But I think if we look at it for the lessons learned, all this good comes from God. So I'm looking for the last chapter, 38. Yeah, 38 is where God's like, okay, you guys, just shut up. The Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind, who is this that darkened counsel by words without knowledge? They were all speaking on his behalf. You must have done something wrong, Job. And even Job is like, God did this to me. Blessed be the name of the Lord. God didn't do it to you. He didn't. Darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge. Gird up thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wert thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. So it's letting him know you guys don't understand it all. And especially his friends shouldn't be, all right, I'm going to go to the end here. His friends shouldn't be speaking on God's behalf. The Lord continues, said, shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? He that reproveth God, let him answer it. And Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am vile. What shall I answer thee? I will lay my hand upon my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer, yea, twice, but I will proceed no further. Then answered the Lord unto Job out of the whirlwind, and I will demand of thee and declare unto me, will thou disannul my judgment? Will thou condemn me that they may be as righteous? So, we judge God. We shouldn't judge God. We don't understand everything. Some of the stuff that he went through is an extreme example. But this is true. We don't recognize the good that God does for the whole world. But when something bad happens, we're the first to accuse him and blame him. So the ultimate end of the story is his friends are rebuked harshly. I'm looking for this. Job answers, who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore I uttered that I understood not, things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. So he basically, let me go to the bottom of this chapter. He's not upset with Job, he's upset with his friends. And he said, it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against thee, and against thy two friends, for you have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job has. See, all the things come from God. He's blessed. He's good, even when things aren't good for me. And God didn't do this to him. And he didn't do anything wrong. None of us deserve anything. Who can be just before God? How can a man be just before God? By faith, apparently, by faith. But these people were claiming God did this to you. It has to be, because he always, when people are righteous, he always blesses them with wealth and this and that and many children. And when they're bad, everything falls apart. Is that true? No, it's not. Even the unjust, they are blessed with many things that they take for granted, but they're going to pay in the end. Remember, we are not judged with the world in the end who does not believe. But it's not always true on this earth. The wicked don't always reap what they sow right here, but they will. God is a perfect judge. So what they're saying is wrong. If you're righteous, you'll have this blessing and that blessing, and God only punishes the wicked people as if they're good. None of us are good, you know? So it says, therefore take unto you 7 bullock and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer for yourselves a burnt offering, and my servant Job shall pray for you. For him will I accept, lest I deal with you after your folly, and that you have not spoken to me the thing which is right, like my servant Job. They accused him. They attributed that God had done this to Job, and he had not. So Eliphaz the Temanite and Bildad the Shuhite and Zophar the Naamathite went and did according as the Lord commanded. The Lord also accepted Job. See, Job had a faith relationship with God. He had a humble heart before the Lord, and he loved the Lord. He didn't just accept good from God. He knew that sometimes things happen, but no matter what, he's not going to turn from God because of it. And I really think this teaches us a couple of things. All good things are from God. You want to know what life on this earth would be like without him? All he's got to do is back away. It's the presence of God that allows us mercy, love, family, livelihood, joy, health, even water. All of it, all the good stuff. It all comes from God. We don't give him glory for that. But when something's wrong, we're quick to blame him, or we're quick to blame our fellow man and then attribute it to God doing it to him. Miserable comforters are ye all. This man was so broken he had nothing left, and they're still saying, well, God did it to you. You must have sinned. Speaking evil of God, it's not true. How can a man be just before God? So anyway, the end of the story is he has more children. It was better for him in the end than it was in the beginning. All of his finances were doubled. Everything was back. Now, of course, there's like a moral to the story. If we get too nitpicky in it, it can make us angry. But we've got to remember we need to have a humble heart before the Lord and realize we don't know the end from the beginning like he does. We can't blame God for everything. All the good he does, we're quick to not give him glory for it. But the minute something bad happens, we want to blame him. And we should never speak on God's behalf when somebody's suffering and say God's doing it to them. They must have some hidden sin. They must have done something wrong. That's nonsense. We should never speak for God like that. So in any case, we should love God and love others. Isn't that what Jesus taught us anyway? If you want to be comforted, you know the way you want to be comforted. Comfort them that way. It's just, if you read it, it's a very long, drawn out, and you get mad at his friends for constantly telling him God did it to him. He must have done something wrong. Where has God ever done this to a righteous person? But in any case, I just wanted to show you that what I saw is all of the good things every person on earth gets from God because of his grace. Family and even the air we breathe and health, and it's amazing the little things we take for granted we don't give God glory for. The minute something bad happens, we condemn God and we condemn others. So it was a hard book for years, but I think I see something in it now that it gives me much humility that we don't deserve anything. We act like we deserve it, like God owes us. Even at our best, God doesn't do, He doesn't have to do anything good for us. He's just good, you know. But the enemy, he does hate you. He does hate you. And if it wasn't for God intervening on your behalf, he'd destroy us all. I can't tell you that much. Okay, guys. God bless.